Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Russ, K5TUX, Cheryl, W5MOO, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 495 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. We thank you for joining us today. This is going to be a short topics episode, and appropriately, as it were, we're short one co-host. So it's going to be short all around. And I think news is also a little in short supply too, but that's okay. We'll carry on. So Cheryl, W5MOO, is not here, but I'm Russ, K5, and Bill's like plinging, or is that me?
Yeah, I know. I'm in bad form as usual.
That's all right. Par for the course, anyway. And considering we haven't been able to record at the usual time because of my network issues, nothing's really going right. But anyway. So as I was beginning to say before the plingy, Cheryl, W5MOO, is not here, but I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so let's go ahead and get down into it. We don't have a lead topic today, but we do have a substitute lead topic, I guess. I guess the first topic that we talk about is the lead topic.
Sure.
Maybe we shouldn't call it lead topic. Maybe we should call it like the special super awesome topic. if we have one of those. But anyway, let's start with some amateur radio. And the first thing we have is sort of a technology topic, not really about, or I mean, it is about amateur radio, but it's not amateur radio. Anyway, let's just do it. The voice of ChatGPT. Everybody knows what ChatGPT is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The voice of ChatGPT is now on the air. That's how it ties into ham radio. Isn't that interesting? Louis Day writes in this Hackaday article, I thought we weren't doing Hackaday because it's all advertising. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
I know. Get on with it. Right. AIs can now apparently carry on passable conversation, depending on what you classify as passable conversation. The quality of your local pub's banter aside, an AI stuck in a text box doesn't have much of a living quality. Huh?
Are you not familiar with ChatGPT? Come on.
No, I know. Is this actually written by ChatGPT? Is that why it's weird?
No, it is written by a human, but that probably explains even more.
Okay. Right. Human. An AI that holds a conversation aloud, though, is another thing entirely. William Franzen has whipped up just that on amateur radio. And there's apparently an embedded video in the article if you should go check that out. The concept is straightforward, if convoluted. A D-star digital voice transmission is received, which is then transcoded to regular digital audio. The audio then goes through a voice recognition engine, and that is used as a question for a ChatGPT AI. The AI's output is then fed to a text-to-speech engine, and it speaks back with its own voice over the airwaves. William demonstrates the system, keying up a transmitter to ask the AI how to get an amateur radio license. He gets a pretty comprehensive reply in return. The result is that radio amateurs can call in to ChatGPT with questions and can receive actual spoken responses from the AI. We can imagine within the next month, AIs will be chatting it up all over the airwaves with similar setups. After all, a few robots could only add more diversity to the already rich and varied ham radio community. That seems like it's tongue-in-cheek, but video after the break. So that came from Hackaday. So how is this different from just like hooking up, the ALEXA to ham radio? I mean,
well, it's essentially the same-ish, I guess, except for that, I don't know, maybe you can call into, one of those services and order some fine goods from Amazon for somebody else. That would be, that would be the difference. I don't know. I'm starting to get a little ChatGPT fatigue because everybody's talking about integrating it everywhere. And frankly, I'm not terribly impressed with it myself, just because it's just, well, it's a bit creepy, but that's besides the point. Not to mention all the lawsuits against it because of lifting content from everywhere else to obviously train it and learn stuff. But then again, don't we all lift content in our brains doing a very similar thing? But
that's how all the AIs work, because it's the only way they can have any kind of knowledge is to seed them from somewhere. So
yeah, I'm not sure it's an appropriate use of amateur radio, but hey, this is, experimenter's paradise. So why not? Why not throw one more thing in there? I'm just interested under, I guess, whether it would be a control station, a remote station, or what it qualifies as. I guess it would be, I'm not sure.
Does ChatGPT have a text-to-speech engine? Does it actually speak by itself? Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can. Well, that's pretty easy to hook into, obviously.
Yeah, you could. I was just curious if it had its own native one or if it was using something else.
As I discuss here is that they're talking about it does do a conversion and then pushes it into the ChatGPT AI, and then the AI's output is back, reverses back to a text-to-speech so it can produce it on the air. That probably works fine because ChatGPT, if you've ever used it, it looks like it's a typing human because it types back to you, which is probably the creepiest part, but I'm like not really sure what the purpose of that is. Maybe to make it feel more human, less AI-like. I don't know. But, it already has the full response before it starts typing towards you. So it seems disingenuous in general.
Well, it's just like any IVR is disingenuous, especially the robot ones. So I tried to use ChatGPT the other day, and it said I couldn't get into it because it was offline for some reason. I don't remember, but I've not actually used it myself. I've heard.
Yeah, I was trying to get it to write a whole episode for us, so we don't have to do anything anymore. We can just.
I'd be curious to see what the text is.
ChatGPT, I need a deep dive on this random topic. And, give us the full, we need to take an hour. See how well it does.
Oh, audio died. Hang on, let me restart it. Stupid bot.
The bot is special. Let's see if they chat back here. Looks like they're typing. Okay, it's back. There you go.
Yeah, it should be.
Technology sucks, and now we want to hook AI into it to do it for us, right?
Well, maybe it could automatically restart the bot when it goes down.
Yeah, that would be useful, I suppose.
All right. So where were we? Oh, yeah, we were done with ChatGPT for now and moving on to our next amateur radio topic, which Bill will fill you in on.
Yeah, so the ARDC, so I've been given some how we like to make words out of these acronyms. Dan suggested I pronounce it ARDC. Or if we want to throw a pirate spin on it, it can be ARDC. So ARDC has had a January community meeting, as they generally have. I believe maybe it's quarterly or might be a couple times a year. But anyways, they had a Zoom call. I didn't get to join it live. I had the grandkids, so I did watch the video version, which we posted links to in the show notes, so you can always check that out. The meeting covered basically some introductions for the new TAC members. That's the Technical Advisory Committee, and then they had some new GAC members. The people at GAC, the Grant Advisory Committee members. Some people shuffled some seats, and they have some new members in there. Also, the new technical director was introduced. They talked about their 2022 grants update, how they did for the year. They did 101 grants, distributing about $8 million. So that's pretty awesome from that update. They also talked a little bit about where they're going to be at, so where you can see them face to face. They'll be at Hamcation coming up in February. Oh, I guess that's pretty soon, like in a week or two. HamSci Workshop, they'll be there in March. QSA Today Virtual Ham Expo, which is coming up again in March. And, of course, they'll be at Hamvention like they were last year. So if you want to meet those folks face to face, they're a great team of people. So definitely put those on your calendar if you're going to be at those events to stop by and say hi. They also did a big 44 net assessment. A company 2P is the name of the company. It was contracted to do an assessment from the users of the 44net, and they got quite a bit of responses back, more than they thought they would. So that's good. They didn't really go into much detail of direction and commitments for changes with regards to the 44net at this point, but they did go over the results of the survey, and that, of course, is also linked in the show notes. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, interested in getting a grant, interested in seeing what kind of projects they've been granting, anything like that, plus their annual report, it's all linked in the show notes. So check that out, and maybe catch the next ARDC or ARRL meeting to be announced at some date in the future. Probably, I'm thinking June or something like that.
ARDC as opposed
ARRL.
to your dick.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, lots of links will be in the show notes about that. Lots of interesting stuff. And the ARDC continues to plow on giving through money, which is nice, I guess. Still have it. Did the ARRL club thing, is that still going?
As far as I know, I haven't looked to see if they have a 2023 grant cycle, but obviously they finished up last year's grant cycle. Yeah, I would just check the ARRL for that if you're interested in a club grant.
Yep, we're going to do that. I got to get off my ass and do some stuff here real soon. But anyway. All right, moving on, we do have another amateur radio topic, and that is the ARRL director in conflict of interest. Oh, no. From the notes of the committee meeting in November, whereas the ARRL Ethics and Elections Committee, E&E, has determined in accordance with its authority and duties the procedures defined by the ARRL's bylaws and in consultation with the ARRL Connecticut Council, that the director, Rhea Hiram, failed to make a full, transparent, and timely disclosure of a potential conflict of interest between himself and the ARRL. That Director Hiram has created an actual and ongoing conflict of interest through the creation and publication of a book which competes with one or more ARRL publications. Oh, no. Whereas, despite several requests from E&E to Director Hiram, no information was provided by Director Hiram. Is this written by ChatGPT?
Yeah.
To mitigate any findings. It is therefore resolved that Director Hiram
Just keep pronouncing it differently every time.
Yeah.
J-Ram.
Be recused in accordance with recusal level 1 is defined by the ARRL bylaws, section 46D1. This recusal shall apply during any discussion and or consideration of ARRL publications and training strategies, contents, marketing, and or plans, including discussions of actual or anticipated competing publications. It is further resolved that Director J-Ram is hereby notified that violation of the conditions of recusal or failure to meet the fiduciary obligations and requirements set forth in ARRL governing documents and in Connecticut law may cause this inquiry to be reopened. Boy, I see you put a link to her book.
Yeah, Rhea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rhea could be a he. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you got to be up in your ARRL stuff, I guess. Anyway,
I'm a member. That's as far as I go.
Yeah, Rhiam's one of the newer directors. Kind of came from the shakeup of transparency and stuff like that, which is kind of funny because Rhea wasn't very transparent that she had this book in process.
What's the senator's name? George Carlo. What the hell's his name? Like the one who lied about everything?
No, that's in New York. Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if it just seems like it's rampant nowadays, even in the ARRL.
It's in Two-Land too, so it's basically the same thing, right?
Same place, right?
That's no surprise. Northeast. Just kidding.
George Santos.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah. I wonder if George Santos is moonlighting as Rhea Hiram.
Yeah, well, I've seen them both. I mean, maybe because George was
you never see him in the same place,
drag,
right? So. Well, that's true. He was supposedly an exotic dancer in Brazil or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this was kind of floating around the interwebs, and it's fun to read all the random comments and stuff like that. A lot of people were wondering why this matters to the ARRL, and I guess most people forget the fact that like the ARRL funds itself through not only memberships but publications, and it is generally a publication company first as a nonprofit, and that's their big money drivers doing these handbooks and study guides and question pools and everything else. So to have a director actually put out a study guide for the technician exam, I believe that's what it was, if I remember correctly. I won't click on the link to Amazon again because then I'll buy something. Yeah, so it makes complete sense. I mean, I'm a member of a couple of different boards, and we do have governing bylaws that are pretty clear about putting yourself in a conflict of interest. And it's just obviously a little due diligence wasn't done by Rhea in her preparations for this. Now, granted, these books probably are in development for multiple years, and but still it should have been disclosed at some point. But I mean, this is nothing more than a little slap on the wrist or whatever. So it means that basically she can't participate in any of the discussions about publications and stuff like that, which of course is a big part of the ARRL. So it kind of puts her in a position that's not really effective, I guess, as a director. So I'm sure there will be more things that will come from this, possibly in a future director election and whatnot.
Yep. All right. We'll see more controversy at the ARRL. I guess somewhere in there, they're supposed to do like advocacy and like legal stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all in their bylaws. It's all published. I mean, they're a nonprofit company, so everything is public, very public.
All right. Very good. So let's move on from amateur radio specific topics and get into some open source. And Bill's going to tell us some of the downsides of open source culture. Don't we run through this like once every 18 months or something?
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if these articles are on like repeat to, republish themselves or whatnot. But anyway, this is an article by InfoWorld, totally legit news source, so totally not coming from ChatGPT or anything else like that. This talks about the 7 downsides of open source culture. So open source passion fuels developer creativity, learning, and community, but it's no Shangri-La. Here are 7 pitfalls to consider before joining an open source project. Number 1, open source doesn't work with the cloud. Many of the current open source licenses were crafted before the cloud. And basically what this point gets into is the fact that many open source projects get swallowed into the cloud and have licensing issues downstream or viability issues with any kind of profitability or money and stuff like that. You can look at MongoDB, MySQL, and many other products. Redis, I guess, would be one. Is that one too? Yeah, possibly. All these little things that we take advantage of in our cloud deployments, are sort of originally open source projects, and they have maintainers that don't get to reap the benefits of being part of the cloud. And that's kind of what they point at with this particular item. Number 2, open source has a diversity issue. Open source developers can be an edgy group, brusque, distracted, opinionated, and downright mean. We're looking at you, Linus. As we've discussed in open source projects, they all spawn from the origination of people wanting to solve their own problems. Normally it's one person's problem. So normally there is no diversity in a group of one, but as people join that group, things can get opinionated for sure. Number 3, community takes time to build and maintain. Duh. I'm not even going to go over that one. 4, open source mentorship is surprisingly rare. I disagree with this, but they say along similar lines, many developers are happy to share their code with anyone, but that doesn't mean they want to help others actually learn. There's probably some to this. We know there are developers in open source projects that won't take, pull requests and stuff like that, because they're not interested in the supporting features and stuff like that aren't of interest to themselves. But this is why in GitHub you have that little button that says fork, make your own fork. So you can fix all that. Number 5? Yeah, 5. Even diehards need paychecks. Of course, the majority of open source developers are idealists who aren't motivated by fame or fortune, but they still need to eat and sleep under a roof. And again, some of these projects are not for sale specifically. They're not looking for money. They're just looking to share solutions to a problem that they had. So, number 6, nothing is really free. And as Richard Stallman liked to say when he wanted to create software that was quote, free as in speech, but not free as in beer. And number 7, some projects shouldn't be open source. Open source versions are good for code that's used by a wide class of developers who can help develop the code together. In some cases, though, the exchange of money is simpler and ultimately more sustainable way of organizing the work to making software. And again, this points specifically at always having a product that you want to monetize. So again, this is a business, I guess a business publication, the Info World. So it's always going to be geared towards, everybody's writing open source software for enterprise shops. I'm certain that's how they think the world actually turns. But it's just definitely a slanted version of what open source culture has as downsides. But like you said, this has been repeated multiple times, and I don't know. I was looking for something to put in here that wasn't too technical. So
back to point number 4 for a second. I think it's a case of a lot of stuff gets put into open source because it's a project that someone had a specific use case for. So they built it, put it out into the GitLab or the GitHub sphere, and it's out there. And then when people want support for it, they don't get it because the developer really didn't have support in mind when they put it out there. In a lot of cases, it's just like, I wrote this thing for me. If you want to use it, here you go. And if it doesn't work, then, figure it out. I don't think it's necessarily a case of they're deliberately putting stuff out there and not supporting it or anything like that. I think it's just a time crunch in a lot of cases for developers. All right. Moving on to the next thing, System 76 in there, immutable base Pop! OS. I saw some articles about this, but I never got a chance to read them. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I didn't really read an article either, but, this is coming along the same lines as you see a lot of distributions, like I'm thinking Fedora, Silverblue. I believe that's their immutable base distribution. Pop! OS is basically working on the same thing. There's a lot of speculation on why they would want to do this. A lot of people, well, I'm not going to say a lot of people. Some people, when you have these kind of immutable base OSs, they tend to rely more on things like Flatpaks, app images, snaps, and stuff like that. Some people, including myself, don't really like those at all, and tend to steer away from those. Obviously your cell phones are all immutable base operating systems. This is what protects it from an application doing nefarious things to your operating system. So essentially that's the whole point. They're working on an immutable base. So they would have an operating system that can't be tampered with by an application, regardless of how you bring it onto the system, whether that be compiled or whatnot, or a Flatpak and stuff like that. So, it's just interesting. Not really, horribly newsworthy, but, it's always kind of interesting when a project tackles something, different like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be interesting to see how it is, because I do have one machine here running Pop! OS because we declared it the best. So I had to have one running it. So, see where that goes. But anyway, something to look into as time goes on. And so my prediction for you distro hopping has already proven itself true, and we're just barely into February. So you've looked at some other distributions with an eye towards Linux in the Ham Shack readiness. So what have you found here?
Yeah, so I didn't get to actually to download or run these. Actually, I downloaded Blend, but anyway, I found a couple of different distributions. One of them is sort of gaming centric, and the other one's just more of an interesting blend, let's say. The first one is Blend OS, and what Blend OS is, it's a seamless blend of all Linux distributions. Blend OS is based on Arch Linux, but you can use any app from any of the distros supported by Blend OS, or even install a desktop environment from any of the distributions and use any of the distributions in standalone sessions. Sorry, I'm getting all phlegmed up for some reason. You can use apt-get, DNF, and Yum, Pacman, and Yay all together from the same Blend OS shell, just like you'd use them on their native distributions, Ubuntu, Fedora, and Arch, respectively. So that's one of the OSs. I actually downloaded the ISO, and it wouldn't boot into the virtual box, so I didn't really go much further than that, but I will circle back and take a look at that in a little bit more detail just to kind of see what that looks like. The other distribution,
I'm really curious about if like you apt install something and then yum install something, does it enter package manager dependency check against itself? Or
I mean, that's the whole point
craziness.
of it. It should, but
or just does it install everything from Flatpak, regardless of the operating system? That way, everything's sandboxed and there can be no problems.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I really wanted to take a look at it, because I wanted to kind of see if you try to install the same package from three different distributions, what actually occurs. So, so I'll get there eventually. So that's kind of why I put it on my radar. The other one is Pika OS, and Pika OS is a gaming focused Linux distribution focusing on the ease of use and high compatibility using the know-how from Nobara, which we have talked about. Nobara is that, very colorful Fedora distribution I think I talked about in November or December. It's combined with an Ubuntu base. Pika OS is almost unrivaled in software compatibility. That's to be determined, but that's what they say. Pika OS Game Utilities is a package that they have. It's a meta package that installs Steam, Lutris, G-Overlay, I guess, Mango HUD, Winetricks, VK Basalt, and other gaming-centric tools. That's why I was interested in it. Microsoft TrueType fonts for better Windows font emulation. Blender for creating 3D images, OBS Studio for streaming, KDN Live for non-linear video editing, Krita for painting, and LibreOffice for productivity. So this is another, gaming-focused OS or distribution that, I was going to take a look at. I don't know if I'd actually install games on it or whatnot, because I'm super happy with Garuda. So I think most of my distro hopping now is just going to be inside of VMs for sure. I still have one machine that's running Pop OS, but that's about all it does.
All right. So anyway, we're kind of on a gaming path. I've been gaming my friggin' head off lately. But only because Minecraft is way more addictive than I remember it being back in the day. So, but with that in mind, you do have an update on your gaming system as you've been working on it, your Garuda-based computer. So tell us where you're at with that.
Yeah, so this is sort of an update to that last episode where we went into a semi-deep dive of the gaming PC and what I've been working on with the gaming project. And this is a Garuda Dragonized Gaming Edition version of Linux. And I did notice when I did install Doom, and I talked about I didn't get that installed the last time. So I did get it installed, and I started running through the first level, and I noticed I was getting some crackles inside of the audio, and it seemed pretty consistent. So I Googled around for some pipe wire issues with the same thing. And sure enough, there was an additional edit I needed to do in my Etsy security limits D config, or your limits.conf, depending upon what system you're using. I just added a conf file for my audio and basically setting the audio to nice of -20, and all the crackles went away and the game played flawlessly, except for I was getting killed by the by the zombie thingies or whatever, the monsters or aliens. I can't even remember what they are. But anyway, so that went away real nice. I did end up having a kernel issue. This is no surprise for you Arch fans. Zen did have an issue with the kernel, and unfortunately I updated both systems at the same time, and I rebooted them, and all of a sudden my desktop was sort of like totally unresponsive. In fact, most stuff was unresponsive. And I was concerned I was going to have to whack the entire computer again. I did kind of look around, and I found out that there was an issue with Zen at the moment. And I unfortunately didn't set up a backup kernel on my installation, using like the LTS kernel. And luckily with the Garuda boot thing, they have a simple one-click root your install. So I was able to root in and install Linux-LTS and Linux LTS headers, and then reboot my system. And all of a sudden I had another option in my kernel configuration, or my grub configuration. So I was able to boot the LTS kernel, and I was back in business. No harm, no foul, but it does remind me that I should remind you that you should install an LTS kernel if you're using some kind of fancy schmancy kernel with real-time settings and all other kinds of latency additions that may or may not work in all instances for you. And I quickly did exactly the same thing here on the Shack PC, which I'm using right now to record this, just to have it as a backup. It doesn't have the issue with the Zen. At least it didn't show up, probably because this is such an old i7 that it doesn't really care about some of the changes that really affect the newer architecture, which of course my two Shack PC or my two gaming PCs are fairly new hardware. So yeah, definitely install that second LTS kernel, and that'll prevent you from getting semi-locked out of your machine with any kind of bugs with Zen. And I haven't rebooted back into Zen yet to see if those issues have been resolved. But yeah, the LTS kernel works fine with everything. So
all right, sounds good. I've been doing the evil thing. I've been gaming on a Windows box, but
boo. I have one upstairs too. So.
Yeah, I have Minecraft on an Ubuntu machine, outside. So when I'm out there, I use that, and it's all good. Now, I was going to put in another topic, and I didn't get around to it. I wanted to talk about Open Connect. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of the word. It's not coming to mind though.
It was interesting because it's a VPN client for all of your like commercial grade VPNs like Juniper SSL and FortiGate and Cisco and all that. And it integrates with like Network Manager and stuff like that. So that's kind of neat. I definitely want to get into that. So I guess when we do another short topics episode that I'm going to talk about that, but I wanted to get it out there in case anybody uses those kind of VPNs and wanted to have some direct Linux integration with them. Check out Open Connect, and we'll talk about it more in a future episode.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's all we've got for topics. We're down to announcements and feedback. I did not have any feedback from the last episode, and I don't think we've had anything that we haven't wrapped up since the last one before the end of the year. So I think we're good there. I've been looking at like what's in the bank, our funds, with the fact that Hamvention 2023 is coming up in about 3 months, a little over 3 months. They say now it's like 15 weeks or something. We're looking at doing a 500th episode giveaway. We want it to be something like non-trivial, and if we're going to do that, we are probably a little bit light when it comes to getting to Hamvention this year. So in years past, I've put up a GoFundMe to get some additional funds to help us get to Hamvention, and I'm going to do that again this year. But the goal is going to be half as much because I think our regular donations are such that we don't have to go, whole hog. I guess we could just go half hog.
Half hog.
Half hog. Yeah. So I'm going to be putting a GoFundMe out there. Links will be, of course, everywhere. We'll announce it on all the social media and stuff. And we'll be looking to get a mere $500 from our listeners. So if you're able to do that over the next, probably run for 60 days or so, then we would really appreciate it. And of course, all of the normal donations, subscriptions and all that stuff goes all into the same place, and it gets used for things like this as well. So, and hopefully we'll have a prize chosen and acquired here pretty quick, since there's only 5 episodes left.
Yeah.
before we get to the big one. So there is that. More information will be forthcoming on both of those, like very, very soon. And with that, we are pretty much done. Just have to do the new subscribers, supporters, and live participants. So I'll run through those real quick. We have a new old subscriber, Steve Sainer, I don't know if he switched to Patreon or what, but he's a new Patreon. But he's been a long-time listener of the show, so thanks, Steve. Facebook, we had Zydeco's Cajuns, that's Hutch, K9KJN, and Mark Sheck. Nobody on Twitter, YouTube, David Birkland, and Victor Alpha 7 Hotel Zulu. On the mailing list, we had W8MKG join us. I think we mentioned that last time, but I didn't remember, so I just put it in here in case, so I don't miss anybody. On Discord, we had Wizmedic, Taiyun, something like that. Not sure how to do the next one. Yes. Perfect. Then Okato, L. Robeson, and Computer Geek 2600. I think we had another one today, did we not? Let me just look in there real quick.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we had ON7LSP, Luke. And that brings us down to the live chat. We actually had some folks join us for the live chat. We had Jeff, KC0JFF, Russ, KC5CNT, Ted, WA0EIR, Darren, VK6EK, and MVB is in the live show chat, but he's been in there for like 2 or 3 days. So I think his participation in today's show is suspect, but
Totally sus.
We'll go ahead and list him anyway. All right. Well, that brings us down to the end of the show. So we want to thank everybody who was here listening to us live and chatting during the program and enjoying all the goodness that is listening while we do it live. And hopefully we'll be able to do it at our normal time at some point whenever I get my network issues straightened out. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great week and you'll tune in for the next episode, which will be a weekender. So with that, we'll get on out of here and let you go about the rest of your day. For the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD 73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Our website is located at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast by visiting the LHS Patreon page at patreon.com/LHS Podcast or by using the contribute list on the homepage. We have a presence on Discord, Facebook, IRC, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also drop us an email at info@lhspodcast.info or leave us a voicemail at 1-909-LHS-SHOW. That's 1-909-547-7469. Visit the online LHS merchandise store at shop.lhspodcast.info for fun and fashionable show-themed merchandise. Until next time, remember to always heed your hedonism.